It was a rainy night, and I was driving around in my taxi, hoping to pick up some passengers. The relentless rain pounded against the windshield of my taxi as I navigated the deserted streets. It hadn't been a good day for business, and I was starting to get discouraged. By the end of the night, I had only picked up a few passengers and I was feeling drained and disappointed. Before going back home, I wanted to take a few more turns around the neighborhood, hoping any late-night passenger would be there. By the time I decided to call it a night, I had only managed to pick up a handful of fares. As I turned my taxi towards home, a wave of weariness washed over me. The meager earning of today was way too low to compensate for the long hours I spent taking turns in the city. Though feeling frustrated and tired, a sense of optimism remained for tomorrow as I wished tomorrow to be a new day filled with hope and passion. As I was about to turn on the road to my home, I saw a person standing on the side of the road and signaling for the taxi to stop. A sudden wave of hope and gratefulness washed over me as I thought that after all day-long struggle, finally end of the day was going well. I stopped the taxi right beside that person. He opened the door, sat inside, and asked me to take him to a different neighborhood. That was a bit far, but I was okay with that. I started the engine and drove straight. That person was silent, so breaking the silence inside the car, I asked him if he was going home, but he remained silent. I found it weird as I was sure he should have heard me, but didn't answer. I thought maybe he wasn't in the mood to talk, so I left the things as they were and started driving silently with just the voice of raindrops landing on the car. As I saw him from the rearview mirror, I noticed he was wearing a black cap and a mask so his face wasn't visible. I took a turn to the right, and it led me to a seemingly deserted road. There were few to no cars on the road. Occasionally 1 or 2 cars would pass. I was driving thinking different thoughts and paying less attention to my surroundings when I heard a gun loading from behind me. Within a moment, the passenger had pointed a gun at the back of my head and told me to stop the car at the side of the road. Terrified, I did what he said. He then said, if I was thinking about doing something foolish like calling the police or screaming for help, he would shoot me right there. My mind went blank in that moment. The road where we were didn't have any security cameras, nor did there was any traffic, so I was unable to call anyone for help. I was at the mercy of that passenger-turned-criminal. I was busy thinking about what to do when he poked my head with the gun and told me to take out my mobile and wallet and place them on the passenger seat. I did what he asked and took out my mobile and wallet and placed them on the seat beside me. I asked him if I did what he asked, now he should let me go, but in response, he put pressure on the gun and asked me to stay silent. I was scared to the bones. It was the first time I had experienced something like that. It had been 5 years since I had driven a taxi, but this type of incident never happened to me. Though I heard from other drivers about incidents like that, now that it was happening to me, I didn't know what to do. I was praying for my safety. Meanwhile, the criminal started talking on the phone with someone. He told him that he got it and he was getting there. Then he turned towards me and told me to start driving to the same location he first asked me to drive him to, while the gun still pointed at my head. I started driving, hoping to take the street where there were security cameras while getting to the address, but as soon as got on that road, he pulled the gun and sat back straight as if everything was normal. My mind was running hard to think of any escape plan, but the fear that he had a loaded gun prevented me from doing something. Soon we reached the address he had given me. He took my wallet and mobile and got out. However, he didn't forget to warn me by showing the gun that I was wise enough to understand what would happen if I went to the police, as he knew the number plate of my car. The area where I drove him was a seemingly abandoned warehouse. The rainy night added to the eerie atmosphere as I watched him disappear into the darkness, leaving me shaken and traumatized. It had been pouring heavily since the morning. It was chilly, and the rain had made it much colder. I was doing night shifts at the convenience store. I was tasked with closing the store. My coworker had not shown up for work for the previous 2 days. She was having a high temperature. That's why she didn't show up again today. I'd been working the late night shift alone for 2 days and nothing unexpected had happened. Today, however, the downpour has made everything feel gloomy. Throughout my shift, I was wondering about how I would go back home in the rain. When I arrived at work in the afternoon, the rain had stopped for a while, but but after about an hour, it began to pour cats and dogs, and it continued to pour until midnight when my shift ended. I exited the store, put on my raincoat, grabbed my umbrella, and began walking back home. Today's night has been especially cold. Rain soaked everything, and there were few people on the streets. On days like these, many choose to stay at home and enjoy the comfort of their blankets and a nice cup of coffee. I had similar plans for the evening and wanted to get home as quickly as possible. I was going straight and paying little attention to my surroundings when I felt like I was being followed. I quickened my pace, hoping that my imagination was playing tricks with me. I tried to listen for footsteps, but was unable to do so owing to the severe rain. I continued walking, dismissing the notion as a figment of my imagination. When I arrived at an apparently abandoned alley, I felt a sharp object touch my side and heard a voice urging me to turn into the alley. Umbrella slipped from my hand and fell on the road. There was no light in that area. My heart raced as fear engulfed me. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do now. All of the horrible scenarios I've seen in web series began to flood my head. The voice behind me demanded that I empty my bag and hand over my phone. My hands fumbled as I tried to open my bag and take out my belongings. Scared for my life, I did as I was told without much thought. As I handed my belongings, a rush of fear and anger washed over me. As soon as I handed over my wallet and phone, I heard that thief say that I would be in danger if I went to the police and reported this crime. I quickly nodded my head. The thief, satisfied with my response, left with my belongings. I stood there frozen in the moment rain pouring down on me as a mix of emotions swirled inside me. Everything happened so quickly that I didn't have time to recover. After the person left, it took me a few moments to turn around. At that very moment, I felt every ounce of bravery leaving my body to resist. I was happy that I wasn't hurt, but I was also disappointed with myself for not resisting. I could still feel the sharpness of what I assumed was the knife that the thief had placed on my side. I was frightened about going back home alone after the incident. The experience left me feeling violated and vulnerable. It took me a while to gather my thoughts and start moving again. The day I got my journalism degree was the day my lifelong dream came true. Ever since I was a child, I've been fascinated by the reporters reporting on TV. I wanted to be one of them, to tell the stories that mattered. So I chose journalism as my major in graduate school. After a long wait, I got a job at a news channel, and my career started flourishing. As an amateur journalist, the first task I was assigned to was finding report. Worthy news. I was eager to prove myself, and I quickly started looking for a big story. One day, I got an anonymous tip about the robberies happening in the neighborhood. I was intrigued by the news, and I knew that if I could get that story, it would be a big hit. My reporter instinct kicked in, and I started exploring the news. I planned to stake out to uncover the truth. One of my fellow reporters and I started staking out at the suspected meeting place for the criminals involved. We got nothing on the first day, and there was no movement in that area. I began to suspect that the anonymous tip was deceptive or that I had misidentified the location. However, I kept my eyes on the area hoping to find something. On the second day, late at night, while we were eating and keeping an eye on the warehouse, I noticed someone stopping the car near the warehouse. Two people got out of the car and began walking towards the warehouse. Something alerts my senses. I made certain that we were not seen. My curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to go inside the warehouse and see for myself what was going on. If I was following the right lead or not. My colleague initially opposed the idea, claiming that it could be dangerous and that we shouldn't risk our safety, but after my persistence, we agreed that I would go inside and he would stay behind so that if anything went wrong, someone could call for help. Excited but cautiously, I started moving towards the warehouse. I had my flashlight with me. I went inside. There was darkness inside. I turned on my flashlight and moved slowly. After going some more in, I started hearing voices. I heard carefully to determine from where they were coming. I started moving closer to those voices when I saw a room with lights on, and voices were coming from there. I closed my flashlight and walked slowly closer to the room till I could hear them. The two persons we saw going into the warehouse were standing in the room around a table, and something was opened in front of them on the table. I opened my mobile camera and started recording them. They were talking about the next robbery plan. I was shocked to hear the details of their plan. I was so engulfed in listening that I forgot where I was. Suddenly my foot hit something and it fell. Then I came to my senses and closed the mobile in seconds. I knew I had alerted those criminals and they would come to investigate what was that noise. Frustrated by my action, I prayed that they would not be able to find me. I started hearing their footsteps coming closer. I hid behind a big drum placed in a corner. They looked around with their flashlights on but couldn't find anything. After a few minutes of search, I heard one of them saying that something must have fallen on its own. They went back inside. I knew I had risked my safety now, and I needed to get back to the car now as I got what I was looking for. Carefully, I got out of the hiding and started making my way out of the warehouse. I kept my flashlight close as I did not want the criminals' attention. I was walking cautiously and by guessing so that I don't hit anything. Even after that much caution, I ended up hitting an empty tin, and the sound of tin rolling on the floor echoed throughout the abandoned warehouse. I knew there wasn't any time to look back, so I started running. I heard those criminals running behind me. I got out of the warehouse and went straight towards the car. My colleague got confused by seeing me running. I hastily got inside the car and told him to start driving. He did what I said. Just when he started driving, I saw the criminals getting out of the warehouse, but we drove speedily in front of them. On our way back to the TV station, my colleague asked about what happened and I told him all. On reaching there, I told my department head about the story I got, and he approved it, saying that I did an amazing job. The police detectives were involved, and due to clear evidence recorded by me, those criminals were captured within 2 days. I reported the news on prime time and got praise for it a lot. Even though I risked my life by going to the lengths of encountering the criminals, my bravery helped the police capture them.